It's awesome seeing Robert Saleh and his bald head, along with Kyle Shanahan and his shaggy head, back on the field together at the 49ers practice facility with a bunch of prospects. Let's talk local pro day prospects, Saleh back on the field, and do the 49ers reach more than anyone on today's Locked On 49ers?
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Thanks for hanging out with us as we break down the NFL draft, get ready for the 2025 season. And if you're new to the program, welcome. You can hang out every day with us talking San Francisco 49ers. Subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Did you see the videos? Did you see the pictures, Croc, of Robert Saleh back on the field, dapping it up, chest bumping with Kyle Shanahan at the 49ers local prospect pro day?
I did, and I loved it so much and it inspired me to rock the baldy at football practice today. Now, I got made fun of by my kids, but it's tough having a bald head. You gotta tan the head, or your head's gonna be two different colors wearing hats all the time. Shout out to Robert Saleh, and it brought back some good vibes. I felt like oh, okay, we're really back, and we're getting back to kind of what the 49ers want to be with Robert Saleh heading that defense.
In the chat, somebody asked what's wrong with my mic and my camera. I am on the loose. I'm actually in Paso Robles right now, doing some wine tasting, hanging out with the family, a semi-vacation. I couldn't get away from you guys for more than a day here on the podcast. Thanks to Croc for holding it down with an episode while I was gone. So, I'm on the move. I got a different mic situation right now. If it sounds weird, let me know, but it's just a different mic and different situation than my home studio. So thanks for shouting me out there, and hope it sounds okay. Let me know if something's really wrong. It looks like my settings are okay, and I think I'm going through the mic and the headphones.
Sound good to me.
All right, good deal. So let's talk about some of the prospects let's talk about Robert Saleh first. What do you think Robert Saleh brings to the 49ers defense that they have been lacking the past few years, basically since DeMeco Ryans moved on?
A couple of things. I think the obvious one, and we'll say this, the low-hanging fruit is energy, passion, right? Like he's going to bring that. But I think more than anything, just a comfortability. Like not just with the 49ers organization, with Kyle Shanahan, those guys, but I think with the fan base as well. They've kind of been on the edge since he left. Now, DeMeco Ryans, that was really good, and people really got behind him. But after that, with the Wilkes Hose situation and then Sorensen, people really missed Robert Saleh. And I remember when people were like, oh, man, maybe he could return. I thought it would be a little far-fetched, but he's back. And I think people – it makes them feel a little bit more confident heading into the season. You had a year where you just didn't do very well, and you win 6 games. You're trying to figure out how to find those vibes again. I think Robert Saleh, because you feel a little bit more comfortable with him manning the defense, I think you're just comfortable with that. So I think he brings that. Like everybody can be a little bit more at ease.
You know that if something's going wrong, it's not because you don't have a NFL level defensive coordinator, right? So that's not the first thing you go to. A lot of respect, I think, from current players who have played with them, and even guys who, maybe didn't play in the Saleh regime for Robert Saleh when he was coach of the 49ers. They understand he's been a head coach in the league. He's a well-respected guy. And so I think that goes a long way. And I think his energy, Steve Wilkes, nothing against him. I think it's probably a similar situation last year too. It's just not a lot of energy from the D coordinators. DeMeco Ryans always bringing energy on the sideline. I don't know if it's the lack of follicles on their heads or whatever it is, Croc, because I know you bring energy too, right? Maybe that's what happens with all that hair, too much energy over the course of, 30-something years, and it's hard to keep the hair on. But Robert Saleh brings the energy, jacked up on the sidelines, always excited chest bumping guys when they come off the field. I think the energy level is going to be higher, and it's the type of player they like to have anyway on defense. And this probably look for some high energy players at the 49ers draft to the defensive side of the ball to go with Robert Saleh's defense. But just the energy, I think, is going to be higher. They even tried to make Steve Wilkes go down to the sideline, right? Because they felt like there was something lacking there. And I think it was lacking there, even with those guys on the sideline. Sorensen last year, not high energy guys. Robert Saleh is going to bring more energy to the 49ers sideline. And of course, we know that the scheme is going to be sound. How about some of the prospects at the local pro day, Croc? I want to talk about one player that I think Kyle Shanahan will absolutely love. And I don't think he fits from a like if he was just played at some school and was just a regular old wide receiver. Elic Ayomanor, and that's how you pronounce it. I went to, by the way, Happy Beast Day, everybody. Dane Brugler's Beast Draft Guide is out, so you get all the pronunciations, all the background, all the correct heights and weights, and the pro day stuff that we didn't have, and so some more complete pictures now. So I love the Beast, and I tried to look a little bit at it today, but I've kind of been traveling around and doing some stuff with the family. But Elic Ayomanor is the proper way to pronounce the 6'2" wide receiver out of the University of Stanford. He was at the Pro Day, 6'2", 206, a little under 6'2", 206, big hands, long arms, 32 and 3/4 arms. He ran a 4.44 at the combine. He had a 38.5-inch vertical at the combine, a little bit more of a true X wide receiver. I think he can move around and do some things, but he's more of an outside type of wide receiver, kind of a downfield guy. I think he's not the type of wide receiver that Kyle Shanahan usually likes, except for one really key aspect, Croc, and he's probably the best blocking wide receiver in the NFL draft this year. And so I think he's the type of guy that will that when Kyle Shanahan puts on the tape, he'd be like, man, I like myself some Elic Ayomanor. I don't know if the 49ers will be drafting a wide receiver in the first couple of rounds because he might not be there by pick 75 in round 3. Pretty much been a second-round wide receiver, maybe the first guy that will be drafted from the list of names at the 49ers local pro day. But an interesting prospect just because of the way he will block you. And we know that Kyle Shanahan loves himself a wide receiver who will block you.
I remember last draft season, we talked about Rodney Bell. Or 2 draft seasons ago, man, time is flying by. All right, but 2 draft seasons ago, 49ers drafted Rodney Bell. And when you watch the film on the 7th round receiver, one of the things that jumped out big time, it wasn't so much just, oh man, he's just such a sharp receiver, man. Look at his routes, look at his speed, right? Like those weren't the things that jumped out, even though he'd give you a little bit of that. But it was his blocking ability and how much pride he took in blocking. And I remember watching him blocking on the edge. The running back runs into the end zone, and he celebrated the block in a way in which you would have thought he just like one-handed mossed somebody, right? Yeah. Like he was just so excited and pumped for his teammate running into the end zone with him leading the way. So if there's a guy that can block very well, Kyle Shanahan, he's definitely watching. I see someone in the chat. He says, Juwan Jennings Jr. I mean, that's one thing. Juwan Jennings, I mean, does it seem like he's getting in fights with defensive backs every game? And more times than not, it's because he's manhandling a guy.
Yeah, they don't like it.
Bench pressing him into the back of the end zone or into the sideline, and he gets a little chippy. He's a big guy. You call him kind of a tight end, and he plays the game in that way, especially in the blocking game, taking after George Kittle just a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that Ayomanor could do the same type. I think they're different stylistically as receivers, but I think it's a similar idea where you put them on the field and, okay, the defense goes to nickel. Well, now you have an advantage in the blocking game because you have a wide receiver that can block you like a tight end. So in that sort of a way, yeah, I guess Ayomanor could potentially be that guy. Former hockey player too. He's from Canada, so he's a tough guy. He's been fighting and playing hard like that his entire life. It's just the way hockey players are wired. So that hockey mentality, Ayomanor brings it to the football field for sure. Some other notable names. Let's stick with wide receiver. San Jose State wide receiver Nick Nash, Croc, another name at the pro day. He's an interesting one. I want to talk a little bit more about him. Some of the things I saw from him when I put him on tape recently. A former quarterback. couple of two or three Cal guys that are interesting. Teddye Buchanan, I think the most interesting linebacker there out of Cal. Craig Woodson, the safety as well. Noel Williams, the wide or the corner, was not there. So let's talk about some of those guys from the Pro Day. Let us know in the chat if there's anybody you thought was interesting from the local Pro Day for the San Francisco 49ers. And I've got a little graphic that I want to bring up, Croc, a little bit later in the program that shows how the 49ers might reach more than any team in the NFL when it comes to drafting players and where they are on consensus boards. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown, one of those matchup of aces when you get ace on ace in a Major League game. Those games are always really fun, even though there's not a lot of balls flying out of the ballpark. But if you get the number 5 starter against the number 5 starter and a few more runs score, that's okay too. The excitement of an NBA matchup, especially when those games really start to matter like this point in the NBA season. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices usually drop as the event gets closer. So they're all in pricing. You see the totals up front, views from your seat, no surprises at checkout. Love Gametime, and you can get some phenomenal last-minute deals, saving up to 60% off buying those last-minute tickets for not just sports, but concerts, comedy shows, theater events. I've gotten tons of concert seats on Gametime, and my favorite thing to do is go to a baseball game and catch some last-minute seats as well at Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Nick Nash, wide receiver out of San Jose State. Former quarterback. I did not know what to expect at all when I put on the tape because I was just interested. I was like, what does this guy look like? Because he was kind of getting a little bit of pub. And by the way, Ayomanor, according to Dane Brugler on the Beast, he's the 11th ranked wide receiver in this class. Nick Nash, 22nd ranked. And I think there is a big difference because this, from what I've seen, this is not a deep class of wide receivers. I'm kind of going through a lot of these late round wide receivers, and I'm like, yeah, not a lot of them really. Like, oh man, love this guy. Nick Nash, 6'2.5", 203. He ran a 4.5, 740, I believe, at the San Jose State Pro Day. It might have been the combine. I'm not sure where he ran that time. He actually plays more like Juwan Jennings as far as a route runner than Ayomanor does, like kind of a big slot. And he's got these quick feet, Croc, and he gets his feet up and down quickly, and he can kind of run a route being a big wide receiver. But with those choppy steps he has, he doesn't gain ground going forward. So he actually plays really slow to me as far as getting downfield and getting vertical on his routes. So he can turn and he can cut and he can get open, but I think he plays really slow at the same time. And that actually starts to sound a lot like Juwan Jennings, right? So kind of a bigger slot receiver. That's what I see. 5th round grade for Dane Brugler, late day 3. I might even wait after round 5 for him. But, if he's there in the 7th round range for the 49ers, I'll be all about it. That's exactly where Juwan Jennings went.
It's interesting that you bring up Juwan Jennings and kind of what made him good. Obviously, he played a lot out of the slot at Tennessee and not the fastest guy. He did run a 4.7. But one thing I will give Juwan Jennings is he got to his top speed pretty quick. So it wasn't like this buildup of speed. It's boom, I'm getting out and I'm at my top speed, and he'd get to his spots and make his catches. And then he was terrific after the run. Nick Nash, still a guy that I have to really dive into his film, but I watched a lot of San Jose State. I used to go to their games. I coached a lot of kids that played at San Jose State. So I'd pop up and I'd see this guy at quarterback. And then next thing I know, he's someone that people are fighting for him to win the Biletnikoff Award. And he's putting up tremendous numbers. And I think halfway through the season and almost towards the end of the season, he's a guy that was number 1 in dang near every statistical category for receivers. So he was ultra productive at San Jose State, a very high target, high volume guy. And the playmaking ability, I don't know if it came from him playing quarterback or what, but he just had a knack for finding the ball, understanding where he needed to be, and catching a ton of passes for San Jose State.
Another interesting one, Teddye Buchanan. So odd spelling of the name Teddye, by the way. It's Teddye. So an extra E on the end of the Teddye. So I like that. Teddye with 2 E's. Buchanan out of Cal. And man, if you just see him without a number on his back and in different colors, he looks a lot like Fred Warner. He's got the hair coming out of his helmet, 6'2", 233 pounds. He is actually a San Francisco native too. Went to St. Ignatius High School. And the dude is built, Croc. Like, dude is ripped. And put on a really nice show at the combine. His testing number is really good. So 6'2" in an eighth, 233 pounds. He was 235, a little bit bigger at his pro day, but he did everything at the combine. Ran a 4.6 flat. He had a 1.61 10-inch or a 10-yard split, 40-inch vertical, 10.5 broad jump, and then ran the short shuttle at his pro day, 4.27, which is a solid time as well. So from a testing standpoint, awesome. Again, like completely jacked, and apparently he's a high character player as well, and he's got a 5th round grade. And like, so there's really not a lot not to like. I would say that he looks more athletic than he plays. Like I don't know if he necessarily plays, because those are some pretty ridiculous workout numbers, and the dude is ripped, but maybe he's almost a little too tight and too jacked, because I don't think he plays quite that athletic, but he does have some athleticism and absolutely fits as a 49ers linebacker. So Teddye Buchanan at the local pro day, really interesting player. Clearly the 49ers know about him and will know his name come draft day.
I actually had a buddy, shout out to my guy, Slappy. We call him Slappy, but Solomon Means, and he played at Arizona State. I need to ask him about that local pro day, because I know he performed in the local pro day when he was coming out of college. And I want to know, like, do they go over everything? Like, do you run your 40? Do you do 3-cone? I know you do, obviously, positional drills and whatnot. Do they do one-on-ones? Like, what does it consist of? Is it the same as a pro day or a combine that we typically see on television? Like, what consists of it? So that's something I would like to know. Can they do invite a lot of local guys or guys from, close to the area of the 49ers in San Jose and Santa Clara? But how do you conduct a pro day with so many people that they invite and have it run smooth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't even know how you do that. And are you really taking a close look at all these guys, or does someone already like suddenly show up and like, oh, okay, who's this guy that I didn't even realize? By the way, Teddye Buchanan spent 4 years at UC Davis too before he ended up at Cal. Have you seen the next great white dude? Honestly, forget Cam Scatterbo, Croc. Have you seen the next great white running back in the NFL? Land Larison from UC Davis. I put him into my last mock draft in the 7th round at UC Davis. He's probably going to be super late round pick or maybe undrafted. Go watch the highlight tape. Even if you don't have to go spend a lot of time on Len Larison. I don't think he's going to go very high in the draft, if get drafted at all. I'm talking running back, one-handed catches out of the backfield, like ridiculous. Like if you told me nothing about any player in this draft, said here's one of the running backs, and you only showed me highlight films of guys, I'd be like, oh, this guy's going to be a top 50 draft pick. Like, it's a fun highlight tape. It's really fun because people kept bringing him up, and I saw this picture of this white dude with the mustache. I was like, come on, what is this going to be? He's awesome. He's so fun. So Land Larison, name to watch. He absolutely fits as the backup to Christian McCaffrey with the San Francisco 49ers. So shout out to the UC Davis Aggies putting some NFL football players out there.
I'm going to have to make a phone call to one of my buddies that's over there coaching at UC Davis, Demario Jordan. Now, he's a secondary coach. But get a little insight on this mustached guy that's kind of wreaking havoc in the FCS.
Yeah, he was like he did like steer wrestling and stuff too. So like I don't know, he's an interesting one for sure. Fun player. One more player I want to highlight from the pro day here, and it is another Cal Bear, and that is Woodson. And anytime a DB has the name Woodson, Croc, I'm going to be interested. This is Craig Woodson, safety from Cal. Noel Williams, I know a guy that you like, Croc, corner from Cal, was not at the pro day apparently. He led the FBS with 7 interceptions. Interesting player, I think, on day 3 for the 49ers at cornerback potentially. But Craig Woodson, the safety from Cal, was there. He's not a player I've watched a lot of yet, but looking at the beast from Dane Brugler here on The Athletic. I'm looking it up right now. Craig Woodson listed as the 17th best safety in the class, a 6th round grade, 6 feet, 200 pounds, 4.45 40. I mean, that's prototype stuff right there. You're gonna have to put in some feelers with some of your guys that are coaching at some of these schools and get some insight on some of these guys. Larison, Teddye Buchanan, and Woodson. Did he go to Cal? Yeah, Woodson's been at Cal since 2019, so 5th-year senior, spent his entire career at Cal.
I have a
Started
buddy,
for 3 years.
I have a buddy, Burl Toller, who I played with my rookie year in the Arena League, and he played some years in the NFL with like the Washington now Commanders and some other squads. Anyways, he was a receiver coach for a lot of years at Cal. He just went over to UCLA this off season, but I'm pretty sure he'll have a lot of good nuggets on Buchanan and some of these guys at Cal. I mean, he saw them for years and over at Berkeley.
By the way, one more name, Essa Pohl, who is a massive mountain of a man, offensive tackle out of Washington State. He's from Hayward, California, so that's why he was the local pro day. Essa Pohl, just a massive offensive tackle, so just another name to watch there from someone who could be drafted that was at the 49ers local pro day. Next, Croc, I want to talk about reaches. I got some data here that suggests not only do the 49ers reach a little bit when it comes to the NFL draft in the first 3 rounds, but they might actually reach more than any team in the NFL. We'll get to that next. It's hard to tell sometimes. I know a lot of fan bases, Croc, they think that their team is either the best and does everything awesome, or they think their team is the weirdest and does the dumbest stuff ever. And it's interesting to hear what fans think about their team, especially when it comes to the NFL draft. And we do all get into this group think mode. And I always try to preach. I'm like, look, the weirdest mock draft you saw leading up to the draft is not going to be as weird as the actual draft ends up being. Like, groupthink gets thrown on its ear. So going by consensus ideas is okay. And I think the consensus big board generally, when it pertains to really smart evaluators and smart people who are in the media and not working for NFL teams, I think they're generally pretty good. And I think if you went by the consensus big board, you'd probably draft okay. In a lot of cases, there would be some hits and there would be some misses, right? But I'm going to bring this onto the screen here. And this is from let's see, SF Data Niners. And this is an account on Twitter that has a lot of good data and stuff. And I like the visuals that come along with it, and bring it up on the screen for those folks that are watching on YouTube. And obviously we'll explain it for those folks listening in their cars, wherever you are. Since John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan took over in 2017, the San Francisco 49ers have the largest average quote-unquote reach in the first 3 rounds, selecting players on average roughly 18 spots earlier than their consensus on big board rankings. On the flip side, the Baltimore Ravens consistently found the best value compared to consensus with their prospects. And if you can see it on the screen right now, all the way at the bottom there, the San Francisco 49ers average, and this is in the first 3 rounds only, average taking players 18 spots later than what they are ranked on consensus big boards. This is since 2017. So I don't know. Does it feel that way to you that the 49ers reach maybe, Croc, more than any team in the NFL on some of those early picks?
I think so. And if you look at a lot of those picks, obviously there's some obvious ones. We talked about Nick Bosa. Everybody knew he was going number 2 overall. But some other ones like McGlinchey, or think of even Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall was someone that people felt like was drafted a little high. McGlinchey, I'd like to go back and see where he was being projected to go. Now, maybe it wasn't too far lower than 9th overall, I believe, when they took him, but it seemed a little higher than some of the other guys that were taken after him. So that kind of, weighs in on the average draft position that they're getting these guys on these reaches. But man, I think you see it a lot. Like Dante Pettis, that was a guy that people felt like was a 2nd or 3rd round pick. The 49ers drafted him traded up for him.
Yeah, moved
in
up
the
to get him.
second round. So I think there's a lot of that with what they've done drafting wise.
Yeah, and when I think back, there's not a lot of players that are like, oh, wow, I can't believe the 49ers got this player here. There's a lot more of, oh, wow, the 49ers drafted this guy here, McGlinchey, I don't remember what the consensus was on McGlinchey. I know I had him as like a late first-round guy, so I probably had him 18 picks later than where he was drafted. Ricky Pearsall, definitely had him 18 picks later than where he was drafted. He was kind of, instead of being a fringe first, second rounder, I had him as a fringe second, third rounder. So, a full round different from where I kind of saw Ricky Pearsall. Even with, the wide receiver bump, with wide receivers going a little higher, at least a half a round higher, right? So, yeah, it feels about right. Then you start talking about third round picks, Ty Davis Price, Cam Latu. I thought there was better prospects in the fifth round than Cam Latu when he was drafted. The kicker, Jake Moody. A lot of people didn't have Jake Moody in the top 100 picks on their big boards. So it's really easy to see how the 40, and in fact, Bosa by some might have been the first player. So they had a one spot. They gained one spot there if you had Bosa as the best player in the draft and they got him number 2. And let me know in the chat. And Croc, let me know if you can think of any. I can't think of a single player where the 49ers really drafted a guy well above where, he had been projected to go in the draft, or even a little bit higher. I had Brandon Ayuk like 30 or 31 overall. Niners traded up to 25 to get him. I think he was probably around that late 1, early 2 range as far as his consensus. I think Kinlaw was right on his consensus as, kind of mid-teens sort of a prospect.
So the 49ers, obviously, they've done a good. I mean, they've gotten a lot of production out of guys that they've drafted. And I think everyone would tell you that there's some misses. But does this mean that they're drafting the wrong guys? Because what do you do, right? If hey, man, we like Ricky Pearsall. He fits what we want to do, but he's not projected to go for another 15 picks. But we don't have a pick in 15 picks, so we draft him now. Are you supposed to just draft someone else?
Yeah.
And what's that domino effect on the following year, right? We've talked about it with Ricky Pearsall. And man, 49ers didn't take Ricky Pearsall, and it's not like you got a ton out of his rookie year. But if they didn't draft him, well, then they'd be available to draft a receiver higher this year that maybe is a better prospect than Ricky Pearsall. So is that the snowball effect of drafting guys higher than they should be going?
Dude, and there's some character questions I think that are coming out about Luther Burden. He might have shut it down this year. His stats weren't as good as they were the year before. I guarantee Kyle Shanahan right now has had some conversations with John Lynch and 2 prospects in particular. 1, Luther Burden, and 2, Travion Henderson. And I'm willing to bet a lot of money that Kyle Shanahan absolutely loves the tape of those 2 prospects and is kind of upset that he can't figure out a good way to make that to be able to sell it, to be like, let's draft Luther Burden. It's like, you just drafted your wide receiver at late round 1 last year, Kyle. Sorry, man, we can't do it. I wonder if he would take it back if he likes him that much, and I don't think the 49ers dislike Ricky Pearsall at all or anything like that. And the 49ers have obviously made some really good draft picks, but where they've really made money was on some of the day 3 picks. And, there have been some good round 1 through 3 picks that the 49ers have made, obviously guys like Fred Warner too, but there's been a lot of head scratchers, and they're not like, oh, in hindsight, that wasn't a great pick. I mean, Croc, it's not like we were shocked that it was not a great idea to draft the 3rd round kicker, or that we were shocked that Cam Latu wasn't an amazing draft pick, or that we were shocked that Ty Davis Price wasn't an amazing draft pick, right? So this is not even hindsight stuff with some of this. So I think the 49ers do go off board and reach a little bit with some of those picks. I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think they do that a lot. And we have those conversations. And then sometimes I think the fans get upset with us that we're not more excited about a certain prospect. And we're like, well, I just didn't quite see it with him. And the consensus are saying that as well. But ultimately for the 49ers, no matter what this says, and you would like them to maybe get a little bit more value for their picks, more times than not, we're pretty happy with the roster that they put out there. The issue ends up being, which now you're kind of struggling to find some of these starters. You got a lot of guys that, I guess, do you say like overachieved? Like they find a lot of overachievers, and they do very well, as opposed to drafting the guys that's a little bit more obvious of being a starter. And Kyle Shanahan kind of discussed almost that, that topic there, saying, hey, well, we're not really looking for starters. We're just looking for certain guys. We don't have to be pressed to get starters. Maybe that's an issue. And maybe that's why they are where they are right now, where it's like, hey, you got a lot of places where you may need 5-6 starters entering this season.
Yeah. Draft like you don't have starters when you're in round 3. Maybe that's the way to go about it for the San Francisco 49ers. They've done well. They've built a pretty good roster, but there has been some weird picks, and I think there's some credence to them reaching a little bit, at least when it comes to the early rounds in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Again, not every time, but there has been some reaches for the 49ers. No doubt about it. Do want to thank everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. If you're new, welcome to the program. Please subscribe. Do it right now. Pause and hit subscribe before your second listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We're only 2 weeks out from the NFL Draft, Croc. We got a lot more prospects to break down and watch, so we're going to have some of those episodes coming. If you want us to touch on a certain topic, please let us know. You can find us on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.